All right. I'm going to minimize this so I can see. There we go. So we're talking about plant-based eating. We're going to primarily focus on human health for this series. There are many aspects to human health. There are at least, 3 or 4 if you go the most basic, and as many as 15, depending upon who you speak to and how they break it down. These are the 6 pillars of health according to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And if you just read around the circle, you can see they're all important, and there's no hierarchy implied by how they're laid out or the colors that they have or anything like this. From the perspective of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, all of them are important. So you have physical activity, you have the importance of managing stress, you have the importance of relationships with yourself and with others. You have the importance of restorative sleep, the value of avoiding risky substances, and very important, healthful eating. These are all ways to maximize our health if we can manage them as they need to be managed. In this 3-part series, we'll be looking at the value of eating more fruits and vegetables every day. So we're focusing on the healthful eating one. Eating more fruits and vegetables has been proven to cause amazing positive changes in our health. So really what we're talking about is food as medicine. I'll be giving you some fun facts tonight. One fun fact, just that most people don't know this, medical doctors get about 20 hours total, like countable 20 hours on nutrition in all their medical education and training. This has been a concern since about 1958 is when it first came to light. And doctors are not usually trained in the role that nutrition plays in prevention, healing, and reversal of disease. I think that's amazing. Isn't that something? Nutrition being one of the foundational pieces of health, and doctors get very little education beyond what to do if a person is diabetic, what to do if a person is in kidney failure, what to recommend sort of very superficially for heart disease. But mostly patients get referred to dietitians. So our subject is plant-based nutrition. We're going to talk about what is it, should I, and how would I? One other thing about doctors and their education, and like I said, I'm a nurse and I fully respect the level of education that doctors have. It's just important to know that they will not generally talk about nutrition, 1, because they don't really get the training, and 2, in a 10-minute office visit, they don't really have the time. There's one thing that I need to add in right here. I forgot to say at the beginning. During these sessions, I just want to emphasize that I am a registered nurse. However, I cannot answer specific questions about anybody's health or their health situations, right? That's kind of off the table for these conversations. And 2, nurses and medical folk are supposed to declare if they have any conflicts of interest when giving presentations, and I do not have any conflicts of interest. Okay, so let's make sure we know what we're talking about in plant-based nutrition. There are lots of terms and they get thrown around willy-nilly and they overlap and they sometimes get used interchangeably, or the definition has changed over time. So definitions are always helpful, so we know what we're talking about. First of all, let's look at what is plant-based nutrition. Here's a basic explanation. Plant-based, or plant-forward as it's being called these days, eating patterns focus on foods coming primarily from plants, and the more plants, the better. Plant-based eating means loading up on fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, which give healthy fats, and whole grains, legumes, which are lentils and beans, while minimizing animal products and processed foods and beverages, and sugar, oil, and salt. Plant-based diets offer all the necessary protein, fats, and carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals for optimal health, and are predictably higher in fiber and phytonutrients. You have three little caveats, though, about supplementation. Some supplementation is strongly recommended for B12, vitamin D3, and iodine. And these are actually the same ones that are recommended for people who are meat eaters. Iodine generally comes in the form of iodized salt. B12 is recommended for everybody because we don't get it the way we used to. We used to be able to get it through, basically it's created by bacteria that are found in the dirt, and the way we clean our food and process food these days, we don't really have bacteria in the food anymore like that. So a lot of people are low on B12. And vitamin D3 is what the skin generates when exposed to the sun. And most of us don't really get a lot of sun either. So that is what plant-based nutrition is about. Now let's look at a couple more definitions. We have, what exactly is the difference between vegetarian, vegan, and whole food plant-based? Vegetarians eat eggs, milk, and milk products, but no animal flesh. Plants are included in vegetarian way of eating. It may also include highly processed foods. It's frequently heavy in dairy products. So if you go to a restaurant and you look, say there's a section that says vegetarian, it'll probably have a lot of dairy products, cheese, cream, things like that, and eggs. Vegans, on the other hand, refuse all animal products. This may be for health or political or ethical or moral or religious and or ecological reasons. This way of eating may include highly processed and other unhealthy foods. Whole food plant-based these people eat mostly all whole, minimally processed plant foods, and they avoid all animal products and chemicals, additives, and preservatives in food. It may also exclude or avoid alcohol, oils, salts, and sugars. Of these ways of eating, vegetarian is probably the most flexible or the most relaxed, given that they're eating some animal products as well as processed foods often. Vegans is probably next on the continuum, eating no animal products at all, but this can be very unhealthful ways of eating, given that they include a lot of processed foods. And actually, another fun fact, vegetarians and vegans may have more trouble with diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease based on the way they eat, because a lot of processed food, and for vegetarians, the animal products are included. Whole food plant-based people are, all of this is along a continuum. Whole food plant-based could be, the person can describe themselves as some percentage of eating whole foods. So 60%, 75%, 90% whole food plant-based. And actually whole food plant-based is considered the one diet that is most likely and proven to stop, reverse, and prevent the killer diseases. I'm going to ask everyone to put their microphones on mute, please, just so we don't get any background noise. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, just a couple more definitions and we'll get into this. Eating pattern is the combination of foods and beverages that make up the person's total intake of solids and liquids over time. May also include your eating schedule, like the number of meals per day and the start and stop time. So if you were practicing intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, that would fall under eating pattern. Nutrient dense is a way to describe foods and beverages that indicates the nutrient and other beneficial substances that have not been diluted by the addition of basically worthless calories or fats or other refined products. So that's nutrient dense. We look at mostly unprocessed plant foods for nutrient dense foods. And variety is a diverse assortment of nutrient-dense foods and beverages that fulfill the recommended amounts without exceeding the limits for calories and other mostly detrimental dietary components. Just a word about variety, and I'm not going to read all of what that says there. About variety, when we talk about variety, we are specifically talking about nutrient-dense foods and beverages. So highly nutritious foods are what we're looking for a variety of in the diet. We don't care if you eat a variety of cookies or a variety of cakes or a variety of different types of French fries, okay? That's not so important for what we're talking about today. Okay, now that we know what we're talking about, we can go on to the questions of should you and why would you? Okay. We all know that the way we eat is a very personal choice. You can start huge arguments talking about the way people eat, right? Insulting someone's food is a serious offense in a lot of cases. People are very attached to the way they eat. It's individual, it's cultural, regional, and nationally significant. Just think about what kind of foods happen at a Thanksgiving dinner and what would happen if all of a sudden somebody decided to switch up the meal without consulting the rest of the people in the family. Or what happens in late November, especially around here, when it's hunting season and suppose you suggested to your favorite uncle who likes to hunt that he not go hunting this year, right? What might happen? And like, just consider, is there anything more American than apple pie? Food is extremely important in our lives. And trying to change any of these traditions, I just dare you, try it. Pushback will be the understatement, right? However, according to research, there are 3 big reasons for going plant-based, and it's just as important individually, culturally, regionally, and nationally. It's just as significant. 1, it's easier on the planet. It sustains our ecology, supports healthy waterways and forests, and enhances biodiversity. So 1 reason we would go plant-based is for the sake of the planet. 2, it's easier on other animals. Obviously, if we aren't breeding, warehousing, slaughtering, or eating them, they'd be really grateful and it would be easier on them. 3, it's easier on human health. Eating plant-based diets are just plain easier on the human body. We'll go into a little bit more depth on how it's easier on the planet and how it's easier on other animals in session 3. But today, like I said, we're focusing on the aspect of human health. Okay. So we know that anytime we want to get to a given destination, we kind of need to draw a map and we kind of need to know where we're starting so we know how to get where we're going, right? So let's get into where Americans find themselves or where we find ourselves right now. This is a picture of what's recommended by the US Department of Agriculture. This is what used to be the food pyramid, is now called My Plate. You can see half of the plate, the red and green, is recommended to be fruits and vegetables. They encourage you to eat at least half of the fruits as whole fruits. They would love, they encourage you to eat some raw vegetables, some salads and things like that. But either way, half the plate should be fruits and vegetables. 1/4 of the plate should be whole grains, with half of those, 1/4 of the plate should be grains and half of those should be whole grains, is what the USDA says. They also recommend fat-free or low-fat dairy or fortified soy beverages. That's this blue circle here, what that represents. And then 1/4 of the plate should come from a variety of protein sources. They do not specify that it should be all meat or all vegetable, but they do say a variety. Less than 10% of the calories per day should be coming from sugars and saturated fats, and less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day is recommended. Here's another fun fact for you. The USDA has two jobs. One is creating eating guidelines like this to give out recommendations to the American public. And the other is to make sure farmers sell meat, dairy products, and other, types of, and certain vegetables and fruits. There is a heavy emphasis on selling meat and dairy products. Our tax dollars support the promotion of meat and dairy sales to the tunes of billions of dollars a year. Very little actually is spent on promoting fruits and vegetables. There's always a heavy recommendation for fluid milk, even though a large percentage of the American population is actually allergic to fluid milk, cow's milk. All right, this is how researchers recommend we eat. Very similar to the My Plate, even down to the colors on the plate, but this one does not recommend cow's milk for the reason that I just stated. Most people are allergic to cow's milk, actually. This one recommends all whole grains with no added sugars or oils. It recommends proteins from a variety of vegetable sources like beans, grains, peas, legumes, and lentils. And there's no need, it says, to take protein supplements. All right. Now, this is what people in other countries think we eat. I find food customs fascinating, actually. Just as a little side note, my son travels to Denmark about once a year. And he's told me that they have aisles in Denmark that are American aisles, just like we have, Latin aisles or Italian aisles or whatever, Asian aisles here in the United States. This is what people in Denmark and Scandinavian countries think Americans eat. Pop-Tarts, sodas, beef jerky, Betty Crocker cakes, brownie mixes, bags of chips, and canned soups. Oh, and you can see the Karo syrup there. Where would we be without Karo syrup? There's also beef jerky there. You can see all kinds of interesting things. It's what people think we eat. Okay, polling question number 1. What do you think most Americans eat on a typical day? Now, I believe we have a poll set up. I think so.
So the polls didn't actually go through on our email, so we don't have that set up. But for now, if you could put that in the chat, that will work for now.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, just enter in the chat. What do you think most Americans eat on a typical day? Are we more in the meat and refined products, cheeses, dairy, things like that? Are we more on the other end of the spectrum, which is fruits, veggies, salads, whole grains, water? Or are we somewhere in the middle where we're eating white meat, chicken, lean fish, or fatty fish, depending, mixes of vegetables and whole grains? Where do you think? It's hard for me to see the chat.
What I saw, mostly seeing processed foods and dairies, meats and refined breads, fast food, coffee, meat, dairy, processed food, more meats and breads, carbs, red meats, grains. This looks like to be some of the answers.
All right, well, let's see. All right, and the real answer is, so this is a graph from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey as reported in the USDA 2015 to 2020 Dietary Guidelines. So this is relatively current. The center line represents the recommended intake for the different food categories. The bars, the yellow and blue bars, indicate the percentage of the US population consuming these foods and in what amounts. So I'm going to just give you a little quick breakdown. As you can see on the top two bars, that's fruit and vegetables at the top two, by the federal government standards, which are, let me just say, notoriously outdated and weak. Americans are not even close to consuming the adequate amounts of fruits or vegetables. Those yellow bars on the top two fruits and vegetables there indicate that we are something close to 75 to 80% deficient in fruits and vegetables. And what's interesting is in the vegetable category, half of what's being eaten is French fries, fried potatoes. The third bar down is total grains, which includes refined white flour products, pastries, pizza crusts, breakfast cereals, and white rice, with intakes of whole grains far below recommended amounts. The fifth bar down is protein foods. We are generally way over recommended on protein foods, and that's animal products. We are low in vegetable proteins. Again, I want you to notice that, okay, so 60% of Americans are eating too much protein, and an average of 70% of Americans are eating too much sugar, saturated fat, and sodium. Another fun fact for you, sodium is not generally a problem from what you add on your plate. The majority of sodium in Americans' diet comes from processed foods and restaurant foods, and it's not even in the form of salt. It's in the form of additives and preservatives that have sodium as a component, and they are designed to keep the food looking fresher, prettier, longer. Again, I want you to notice the dairy bar here. This is the fourth one down. I don't know if you can actually see my pointer there, but dairy, it says 80-something%, let's say 85% of people are not consuming enough dairy. Now, I find that interesting because something like 70% of our population is allergic to dairy products. So it's fascinating to me that the USDA continues to push dairy, even when it makes a large portion of the population really sick. I'm actually one of those people, I'm allergic to dairy products, so I know I'm not consuming my fair share. So what are most Americans in the USA eating? You got it. French fries, pizza, burgers, donuts, and other colorful things, and a tiny bit of salad, mostly iceberg lettuce and some tomatoes. So that's pretty much what the American diet looks like. We call that the standard American diet, or SAD, S-A-D, diet for short. Fun fact, according to WebMD, if you eat lots of processed meat, fried food, refined cereals, candies, pastries, and high-fat dairy products, you're more likely to be anxious and depressed. Easy solution, eat more plants and unprocessed whole foods. All right, so in the chat, where do you fall on the eating spectrum? This is about you personally. Are you more in the animal and refined grain end? Are you somewhere in the middle, or are you more in the fruit, nut, veggie, whole grain section? If you could put that in the chat, that would be great. All right. Light blue. Great. So most people are saying they're in the middle. We have a couple people in the light blue. Nice. Yeah. Some people closer to the more in the veggie end. Excellent. wherever you are, be proud. It's not a, you know, it's not a bad thing. You are where you are, and you got to start somewhere. Excellent. All right. Move on to the next one. Okay, we're going to take 36 seconds here just to sort of calm ourselves down and breathe. And I'm actually going to run a timer. So for just 36 seconds, I want you to take some deep breaths and sort of center yourself. Start now. All right, that was 36 seconds. I'll ask everybody to put themselves on mute, please, while we're doing the presentation. Thank you. There's some background noise going on there. So 36 seconds. 1 American suffers a heart attack every 34 seconds. So in that length of time, someone had a heart attack. 1 American dies of heart disease every 36 seconds. So somebody died in that length of time. That's according to the Center for Disease Control. That was in September of 2020. Heart disease is the #1 killer, #1 cause of death in the US, accounting for 36% of all deaths annually. So that's upwards of 650,000 people per year. Back in the chat now, just type yes if you know anyone or if you yourself have an issue with heart disease or diabetes, because they go hand in hand. If you know anyone, yeah, or if you yourself have heart disease, yeah. That's almost a 100% capture, that kind of question, because we all know somebody or we have it ourselves. Thank you. Another fun fact for you. According to research, our food choices are the primary driver in our heart health. Loading up on minimally processed plants makes a huge difference in cardiac wellness. Our food choices and eating habits account for 80% of our total health picture, and that's more than exercise and more than your family genetics. Literally, your food trumps your genetics for heart health, diabetes, high blood pressure, and a lot of cancers. That's one good reason to change your eating habits right there. Okay, so the chat's still open. Please put in the chat why you might be interested in changing your eating habits or adding more plants to your plate. Just speak straight from your gut. What's going on? What makes you want to even sit through a talk like this? Learn more about plant-based eating. What makes you, what's got your interest up? Improve my health, my husband, reduce inflammation, healthier eating, my health and the health of the planet, lower my cholesterol, increasing hormone health, wanting to continue to learn and cook better, already plant-based, animal rights, great. Raising kids with healthy habits. When I became vegan, I felt better physically, emotionally, and spiritually until I turned to junk food. Yes, indeed. The slippery slope of junk food. Beautiful. Well, there are lots of reasons for going plant-based, right? Could be to feel better, to look better, to lose weight. But it's really important that you know what your why is, right? What is your why? The possible reasons are endless and they could be anything, but here's a hint. If you want to make this type of difference, this type of change. And let me tell you, unless you are really committed, it can be an uphill battle because there are all kinds of influences and reasons in our culture that would keep you from going plant-based. You're going to want a why that makes you cry. Something that when you think about it, you could just get so emotional. It's that important to you. It has to be important to you. Anything that's important to you is good. And bottom line is you have to want to, and you have to be ready to. You already entered in the chat why, but that was like at the most superficial level, right? And one thing that we encourage people to do when we're coaching is ask themselves why, and then ask why again, and then ask why again, right? So it could be feel better, look better, lose weight. Could also be to prevent an illness that runs in your family, to reverse an illness that's already taking root because your doctor told you to. Or maybe it was your grandchild asked you to. Or because you just had an aha moment. Or it was on a dare, or to honor a loved one's request, or to support a friend, or to be able to dance at your child's wedding. Any of those are great reasons. It's just important that it's important to you. More fun facts. Of the plant-forward ways of eating, vegetarian, vegan, and whole food plant-based, only whole food plant-based is proven to prevent, heal, and reverse diseases. If your why includes improving health, vitality, longevity, energy, or disease prevention, healing, or reversal, you just have to look at the list of illnesses here to see this way of eating would greatly support you accomplishing your goals. It is proven to reverse coronary artery blockages, manage high blood pressure, reverse diabetes, handle allergies, make an impact on digestive issues, stabilize Alzheimer's, certainly valuable for managing prostate and colon cancers. Now, I need to say too, I'm not suggesting that this is, that you should stop your medication or change everything around and stop seeing your doctor and manage your health only with food. I'm not saying that. That would be irresponsible. If you're going to change your diet, work with your medical providers, your medical team, tell them what you're doing, find a doctor who's supportive if your doctor is not, and work with your medical team to manage your health this way. It also works for colds and flu, has an impact on depression, like we just said. Eating refined foods is most likely associated with anxiety and depression. Also helps with migraines, obesity. Oh my goodness, can we get them all on the screen? COVID-19 is the bottom one. And yes, they just did a study released this past summer where they found that the people who had the best outcomes when they were, when they contacted and contracted COVID-19 disease, the ones who had the best outcomes with the least problems were people who were whole food plant-based in their dietary habits. People who ate the standard American diet, the SAD diet, full of meats and cheeses and refined products, had the worst outcomes, 73% higher risk for worse outcomes with that illness. Okay. The next few slides are photos from the book Hungry Planet by Peter Menzel and Faith Deluisio. It was written in 2005, or at least published in 2005. What this book shows are, it's like the total amount of food a family eats in a week. And this Peter Menzel and Faith Deluisio went all around the world, or had teams all around the world, taking pictures of a week's worth of groceries for families in all different countries. This is an American family. And I just want you to really look at what they're eating. If you could just like be very objective about it. I want you to consider that much of this stuff is not really food. So if you look at vanilla wafers, rice-a-roni, fruit and grain bars, corn dogs, Skippy peanut butter, things like that, those are foods that they're actually a combination of small amounts of food, like grains and sugars and fruits, that have been greatly refined, removing the most nutritious and valuable components. And then other chemicals, preservatives, artificial colors, sweeteners, and flavors have been added to create a highly attractive food-like substance. Corn dogs are like that. That highly attractive quality of processed food is something called a bliss point. Here's another fun fact for you. The American food industry spends untold millions, and I'm sure that's that's not nearly enough. I could not find how much anywhere is spent on determining and manufacturing engineering foods so that they're desirable. The bliss point is that craveable quality that keeps people coming back for more. More specifically, it's the optimal amount of sugar, fat, and or salt that's scientifically studied, determined, and engineered into a food so that people will go wild for it and the product will fly off the shelves. So think about those vanilla wafers or those corn dogs, Lay's potato chips, Kit Kats, Cheetos, Skippy peanut butter, frozen pizzas, Big Macs, Popeyes, Kentucky Fried Chicken, any of that. We crave these foods because they're engineered to make us want more. Consider that the standard American diet then, the SAD diet, is not focused at all on nutrition or health. It's created around bliss points, which help drive sales. Isn't that something? All right. Now, by comparison, this is from the same book. Hungry Planet is the book. This is a week's worth of food for this family in India. Note the weight of the fresh fruits and vegetables there in the front of the picture. They're important. Typically beans, lentils, and rice and millet are staples as well. The stainless steel cylinder behind the lady in red on the left-hand side there is actually a dispenser for water, because having clean water is difficult in some parts of India. In some homes, there would also be a similar container in the kitchen as a dispenser for oil. Fun fact, when America exports its foodways, you know what we're exporting, right? We export unhealthy, processed, bliss-pointed stuff. Whereas in the past, lower income Indian families ate very traditional meals, which were heavy in the beans and the lentils and the rice and vegetables. Also a lot of cow's milk products they do eat. But in the past, that's how those lower income families would have eaten that way. Now, America has been exporting our wicked ways to other parts of the world for a long time. So when children now are walking home from school, they actually ask their parents to give them money so they could stop at the little stores on the way home and buy Cheetos and potato chips and other things like that. You may have heard that over this last summer, India was very hard hit by COVID-19. And from what I've been able to determine, and certainly talking from people that I know who are from India and still have family in India, the hardest hit people were the people who had a fair amount of disposable income. So they were eating far more westernized foods, more fried foods and oily foods, way more of the processed stuff. Also, those populations in India tend to suffer more from diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease. We call actually those diseases, high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, and gout, are called diseases of affluence, because for the longest time, only rich people got those diseases because of the way they ate. Here's another picture from the same book. This is a Guatemalan family. Notice again, heavy amount of fruits and vegetables at the front of the picture, and on the table as well, blueberries and cabbages and green leafy vegetables and things like that. Lots of beans as well. Now we're back to the United States. Another comparison. Now there's 3 males in this family, 2 of whom are teenage boys. So we already know what that means. They are eating nonstop, I'm sure. I can't, I had 1 teenage boy in the house at a time, and that was enough to wreck our grocery budget. But note on this, in this picture, very, very few fresh fruits and vegetables. There are a couple of tomatoes, there's a little plate of grapes, and there's some canned peas, it looks like. And other than that, it is all processed stuff. Look at that. Amazing. Just amazing. Diet Coke, all kinds of chips, Uncle Ben's rice. Amazing. So this is the typical SAD diet that puts people at high risk for poor health outcomes, right? Really something. All right, hard facts. This year in the United States, 1 million people will have a heart attack or die from coronary heart disease. 16.5 million people greater than 20 years of age are living with coronary heart disease. 795,000 people will have a stroke. 103 million will be living with high blood pressure. 23 million living with type 2 diabetes, and 56 million people over the age of 40 will be eligible for cholesterol lowering medications. So these are the numbers, meaning Americans are fatter and sicker than ever. And the majority of it is a result of our food choices. These are lifestyle illnesses, we call these. All by choice. Sometimes it's not a conscious choice. We don't know that we're doing this. I mean, if we go get a frozen pizza, we're not intending to make ourselves sick, but that's how that works. Okay, I'm going to take it one step further, and then I'll back off a little bit on the gloom and doom, okay? In 2015, the World Health Organization took the position and declared that all processed meats are class 1 carcinogens, meaning there is convincing evidence that processed meats will cause cancer. They also said that unprocessed meats are associated with cancer. All right, so that means ham, turkey, chicken, beef, venison, elk, buffalo, jerky, deli meat, sausage, bacon, brats, wursts, and Schweigers, yes, all are associated with cancers and are considered carcinogens. So remember before I said plant-based diets are easier on human health? Seriously. I don't know of any plants that do that to the human body. Okay, but you might say, what about exercise? What if I get out and I run 5 miles a day? Would that make a difference? Well, yes, exercise is important. 20 to 30 minutes per day is recommended, especially if you can get some sun on your skin. That helps your vitamin D levels and it supports your immune system. However, we can't outrun or out-exercise what we eat. Even world-class athletes have issues with the worst killer diseases. I'm going to tell you a quick story about Dr. Stephen Lohm. He is a cardiologist and he founded the nonprofit that I now lead. He came from a family of super heavyweights. They were 300 pounds plus, and his mother, his father, his sister, and himself. And as a cardiologist, he decided he wanted to make a difference with that. He wanted to change that for himself first, right? So he decided he would start, change his diet, go with the American Heart Association diet and start exercising. He changed his diet, he started exercising vigorously, and it did not make a difference for his cholesterol numbers or his blood pressure or his diabetes or any of that. He was a very heavy gentleman at that time. So he went further and he stripped down his diet more and he started running marathons. He lost some more weight and everything, but still no real difference in his numbers. Finally, he realized that no amount of following the American Heart Association recommendations and no amount of taking all the medications that they were able to offer him would make a real difference in his health. He started doing the research and he found that going whole food plant-based was the answer. That's what he did. He took all the meat products out of his diet, all the dairy products out of his diet, to include chicken without skin and fatty fish, all of it out. And he continued to exercise. He told me that he would have had to run probably 5 marathons a year to make a difference if he hadn't changed his diet that way. And lo and behold, he was able to make a huge difference in his numbers. All of his numbers came down to within normal range. He lost a tremendous amount of weight and became a very healthy proponent of whole food plant-based eating. One of the interesting things is, we were talking about doctors earlier and what they learn in school and how doctors work with patients. And again, I'm a nurse. I have a whole lot of respect for medical physicians. Very tough jobs they have. However, our American medical industry is, as much as I hate to say it, built on a profit motive. When Dr. Lohm found that he found a way to manage the high cholesterol and the diabetes and the obesity and the heart disease and all of that, he started teaching that to his patients. And what do you think happened? Of course, the patients believed what he told them. They followed his recommendations, and suddenly his numbers of stents and open heart surgeries and cardiac catheterizations and all that, all of those numbers that the way he was earning money started to go down, and his patients were doing well. He wound up getting called into his chief medical officer's office. That's the highest medical physician in a hospital system. Got called into the chief medical officer's office and was asked, so what's going on with your practice? I notice your numbers are dropping. I notice you don't have nearly as many stents and coronary artery bypass grafts and catheterizations. What's going on? And Dr. Lohm was like, oh my gosh, isn't it great? We're taking care of the people. They're doing so much better. We'd be able to cut their cardiac medications and no more strokes. And we're just so excited. And the chief medical officer looked at him and said, we have a problem. You're here to earn money. You have to pull your weight. If you don't bring in the amount of money that you're supposed to bring in, we can't afford to keep this state-of-the-art cardiac center. We can't even afford to pay the staff. So either you get your numbers up and start bringing in the amount of money that we expect, or you're going to have to find another job. That is a true story. So that led Dr. Lohm to create the plant-based nutrition movement, which he led for about a year, and then he turned it over and I was elected to be president of it after that. But that is a true story and sort of encapsulates what happens often in the American medical system. So if you're really interested, you really have a why that makes you cry and you want to change, you want to cure heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, all of that, diet. I have never seen a case where taking medications alone was able to cure any of those things. All right, I already said it. If you want to do something about it, change your eating pattern, change your diet, okay? We can even make a difference with the genetics. This quote on the bottom is by Dr. Michael Greger, who's a strong proponent, researcher, and supporter of plant-based eating. Whatever genes we may have inherited from our parents, what we eat can affect how these genes affect our health. The power is mainly in our hands and on our plates. And I like to say it's right on the end of your fork. That's from his book, How Not to Die. Another quote. Dr. T. Colin Campbell, who is a researcher, wrote the book, The China Study. The closer, and actually this is the closer Chinese people, okay, because he was talking about the Chinese population that he was studying, came to consuming an all plant-based diet, the lower the risk for chronic degenerative diseases so common in the West. So a little bit about the China study. It's a landmark research project done by Dr. T. Colin Campbell. He studied 6,500 people in rural China, looking closely at their eating patterns and their disease trends. The data collection for the study spanned 20 years, and it's one of the largest and most comprehensive studies of human nutrition ever undertaken and conducted. The eating pattern in rural China at the time the data was being collected was very different than American eating patterns. Westerners generally eat 10 times the amount of animal products, and dare I say, a lot more processed stuff than the people of rural China. Through rigorous analysis, the study showed that high levels of animal protein are directly associated with cancers and other diseases common in the Western world. Again, from the China study, Dr. Campbell also found in his work with rats that he and his team could literally start and stop the growth of tumors in rats by manipulating the amount of protein, animal protein specifically, that the rats consumed. And I mean, they could turn the tumors on and off. Fascinating, right? Once tumors started growing, they could be stopped by dropping the amount of animal protein to 5% or less of the diet, or by giving plant-based protein like soy or wheat instead. Other studies have shown this correlation as well. In fact, high blood cholesterol, which is only found in animal foods, was and is consistently associated with cancers of the liver, colon, rectum, lung, brain, and brain and leukemia. I do want to add just one little caveat here about cancers. While eating a plant-based diet helps fight diseases of all kinds, to include cancers, there's no evidence that if you are, or if a person is drinking large amounts of alcoholic beverages, there's no evidence that plant-based eating will make a big difference with that. Okay, so there is definitely a known correlation between alcohol consumption and emotional and psychological and relationship and physical changes, including cancers. In other words, no matter what we eat, research shows that excess alcohol intakes is detrimental to the human body, mind, and spirit. Okay, just want to make sure we're clear on that, because alcohol could be considered a plant-based beverage, but it actually has components in it that are carcinogenic. Drinking large amounts of alcohol will negate whatever benefits you're getting from eating a whole food plant-based diet. Okay. Okay. All right. Now this is another interesting study that was the data was collected by the U.S. Department of was collected by the NIH actually, and published in 1999. This shows a direct correlation between the percentage of calories from whole plant foods, which are the purple bars, and the percentage of deaths from heart disease and cancers, which are the red bars. So the lower the amount of unprocessed, unrefined plant food, the higher the amount of heart disease and cancer, right? If you look at Hungary, you can see that. Red bar, very high, purple bar, very low. On the other end of the spectrum there, on the other end of the scale, in Laos, where they're eating very high amounts of unrefined plant foods, the purple bar, they have very low amounts of heart disease and cancers. So it's well known that cardiovascular disease is a leading cause of death for both men and women in the United States. It actually has been for the last 100 years. The average age that a man will have a heart attack is age 65, while for women it's age 72. Women age 45 to 65 who've had a heart attack are more likely than their male counterparts to die within a year. Women older than age 65 who experience a heart attack are more likely than men of the same age to die within a few weeks. Colon cancers are the second leading cause of cancer-related death among American adults. And one person dies of colorectal cancer every 10 minutes. The cost of these diseases and lost productivity, treatments, and recovery, never mind just sheer family disruption and loss of life, is astronomical. We can also add, like I said before, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, GI disturbances, and all kinds of other diseases to the list. Okey doke. All right. So how about some success stories? Because it's a lot to take in. I understand. So let's look at some success stories. And just remember, like I said before, doctors are not trained in nutrition in this way. They're not trained to use food to prevent or reverse illness. Doctors are trained to manage illness, and they are trained very well. American doctors are some of the most amazing people, highly trained medical professionals in the world. But what American medicine focuses on is medications, treatments, procedures, and surgeries, right? They are not at all likely to recommend food as medicine. So let's look at some of these people. All right. Now, these are all people I know personally. These are friends of mine or clients of mine. And I have their permission to use their pictures. This is my friend, Pat. She struggled with her weight for many years. She also had been eating the SAD diet her whole life. She was born and raised in Wisconsin. She had the typical American diseases: high blood pressure, diabetes, a certain type of leukemia. She had thyroid issues, low energy, the whole 9 yards, right? Typical American illnesses. On the left is Pat at age 65. Now, Pat is a short person. She's probably 5 feet tall. Okay, so for her to be as heavy as she looks in that picture on the left, she's really pretty heavy at 65 years old. She was convinced at that point that she was going to need a mobility scooter and a handicap sticker, because every year her mobility was decreasing. She had great difficulty walking any distance. On the right, that's her at 70 years old. Having dropped 86 pounds, now she typically walks 5 miles a day, and that's all year round. She's reversed all of her illnesses and is just glowing. She's amazing. What was her why? Let's go back to what's the why that's going to make these people cry. What was her why? Her grandkids, and she likes to travel. She started working to lose weight with a 12-step program, and that was about 3 years ago. And then about 2 years ago, she went completely whole food, plant-based. Now that she's healed all of her conditions with nutrition, she has energy to spare for her young grandbabies, and she's able to take trips as she sees fit. Actually, she's in France right now. More fruits and veggies brought her all her labs to within normal range, and she even was able to reverse that leukemia that she was suffering with. So that's one type of a why. You want to lose weight and feel better, right? That's one kind of why, but it's not always about losing weight. This is a friend of mine named Jen. She called me, I don't know, maybe a year ago now, maybe 9 months, because she didn't want to lose weight at all. She was actually within normal weight range, but what was her why? She just wanted to feel better. She was beset with frequent migraines, body and joint pain, high blood sugars, cholesterol, and her doctor offered her just medication, more and different medications. At 40 years old, she felt like she was fighting a losing battle already. She had heard about the power of whole food, plant-based diet, and she decided to give it a try. We put her on a whole food, plant-based meal plan, and everything for her started to shift. In fact, she just went back for her follow-up appointment back in the summertime, not too many, maybe a couple weeks ago. And guess what? All of her labs are within normal range and her migraines have stopped. And that's just from food. This is my friend Raina. On the left, in January of 2020, you can see she's got her notes down at the bottom underneath the pictures. She was 35 pounds heavier than the other picture on the right, which was taken 1 year later. Changing her food ways created a total lifestyle change for this lady. What was her why? She'd been praying for a way to improve her energy level to keep up with her toddler, and she was looking for a way to breathe life into a new direction for her career. She decided to go whole food plant-based. Not only did she lose 35 pounds, the change in her way of eating brought her to a more positive relationship with herself, increased her self-esteem, brought her a more positive relationship with her son, and gave her the confidence to launch a new career in food justice. Here's one more. This is my friend, Deborah. Deborah is 64 years old and she's about 5 feet tall. For years, she suffered from debilitating migraines, knee pain, and low energy. She had ongoing digestive problems too. Again, no long-term solutions were offered or were in sight except more and different medications, which had more and different side effects, which led to more and different medications. Not a pretty picture for her future at all. What was her why? Well, Deborah has one grandchild with whom she is very close. She only has one, and she's very close with that one. When he was 5 years old, her grandson asked her if she was going to last as long as his great grandma, who was age 91 at the time. Imagine. This is your beloved grandchild, and he's looking at you like, I don't know if you're going to make it, Grandma. Are you going to last? That innocent question took her aback and motivated her to start a health journey, which she's still on. On the left, 18 months ago, she was 173 pounds. The picture on the right is literally 2 weeks ago, and she's 125 pounds. That's 48 pounds. That's a lot for a petite little lady. It took her from obese to normal BMI. It fixed her digestive problems, reduced her knee pain by 75%. Her headaches, while not completely gone, have decreased in severity and frequency, making her life way more enjoyable. With fewer headaches, less pain, and more energy, she's able to spend real quality time with her grandson. So literally, you could go from feeling like this poor soul who's on the left with the mask on and the head down on the computer desk. You could go from that to feeling something like this happy girl on the right. I mean, it really does happen like that. That is not an exaggeration. People experience remarkable 180-degree turnaround in their health, very often from just changing their food. It's really that simple. Okay. Okay. Now, here's some recipes, because I know part of the question is always, but what do you eat? How do I do it? What works? What doesn't work, right? So let's look at a couple recipes. I encourage you to take pictures of your screen for this so that you have the recipes. All right. I have to tell you, both of these recipes are do have the seal of approval from my meathead husband, okay? And that's his words, not mine, okay? But he loves both of these recipes. This is basic granola. You can add your favorite nuts, seeds, fruit, or leave out the ones that you don't like. It's very flexible sort of recipe. This one, you mix everything up in one bowl. The oil here is optional. Actually, I'm going to give you a little caveat here as well. Oil is considered a highly processed food and does not really have any nutritional value. Okay, we are just used to eating oil, and we've been taught that oil is wonderful and adds to satiety value and mouthfeel and things like that. But oil is not really recommended by a lot of the plant-based researchers and docs. Okay, In this recipe, the oil is optional, or you can cut it back, but certainly recommend as minimal use of oil as possible, okay? This one, you mix everything up in a bowl and spread it out on a baking sheet. You bake it for 15 minutes in a 350-degree oven, and then you turn it off and leave it in the oven, do not disturb, overnight or for 8 hours. If you're, you can make it in the morning, I guess, and leave it alone. Just don't open the oven door for 8 hours. And that makes some pretty amazing granola, okay? That's one. Wonderful stuff. You can eat that by itself, like chunks of granola. It comes out pretty well stuck together in the pan, so you can break it up and put it in a storage container. You can not, only break it up in sort of larger pieces and eat it in chunks like that. You can eat it with plant-based milk, like a soy milk or rice milk or almond milk or oat milk or whichever kind of milk you like. You can eat it with a plant-based yogurt. Okay. And this is another one. This is called orecchiette pasta with broccoli sauce, originally found on the Feasting at Home website. I'll give you the method here on the next slide. This is a great one. I recommend you either use a whole wheat pasta so you can get the whole grain, or you can use an alternate pasta made from lentils, or they have garbanzo bean pasta. You can even eat it over zucchini noodles, shredded zucchini noodles, spiralized zucchini. Very good. Again, here it has truffle oil as a garnish. That would be like a couple of drops, or don't use that at all. It's really ridiculously expensive and unnecessary, but it does add a particular flavor. The Kalamata olives do give healthy fats in this one, as the nuts gave in the last one, okay? So take a picture of this one. I will also say the miso paste that this one calls for sounds like some exotic ingredient. I do find myself using that miso paste pretty often. I have a soy allergy and I cannot use soy sauce or tamari, but I do use something called chickpea miso, and that works very well for giving that a sort of, it's an umami kind of taste, a savory taste to the dish. This is how you make the broccoli sauce. So go ahead and take a picture of this. This is really good. Great stuff. Not your typical American flavor at all. American flavors tend to be on the sweeter side. As we know, we add sugar, salt, and oil to punctuate our meals. This one does not do that. It's heavy broccoli taste. If you use broccolini or broccoli rabe, it has a little bit different taste again. Really good though. All right. These are some resources that you might like to look at. Take a picture of this. PBNM is the nonprofit that I lead, Plant-Based Nutrition Movement. Nutrition Studies is led by Dr. Michael Greger. He's got great information on there and a broad and deep website. PCRM is the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, another amazing organization, beautiful, broad and deep in this website. Everything, recipes, reference materials, interviews, just amazing stuff. PCRM also created a Kickstart program if you want to look at that and take advantage of what they have there. It's a free 21-day Kickstart with meal plans and recipes. And then Forks Over Knives, which is probably one of the more well-known names these days in the whole food plant-based realm. There was a movie that came out by that name, and their .com came out shortly thereafter. If you'd like to get a hold of me, if you'd like to know anything about the Pretty Wild Vegan Kitchen, cooking and dining experiences, if you want to tap into a ready-made community of people who are whole food plant-based, if you're interested in coaching for health transformation or learning more about the plant-based nutrition movement, that is my business number. So please feel free to call me. I'm happy to talk about it at any time and support whoever is going through, wants to go through diet transformation, especially for health.